Trading Standards Business Advice Team are providing free advice and support for businesses affected by COVID-19. I'm talking to Principal Trading Standards Officer Nathan Martin about the businesses that the government has ordered to close to the public during the pandemic. So Nathan, which businesses are allowed to open?
Hi Jill, it's a very good question. A lot of people seem to be under the impression that all businesses have to close, but that's not the case. There's actually a really long list of businesses that can be open. I won't cover them all. I'll just try and hit the ones I think would be most relevant to the people watching this video. If I could start off with retail then, the most obvious of which are supermarkets and other food shops. So things like farm shops. They can be open as normal. What I would say though, is if you are a shop that sells something else, say a card shop or a craft shop, and then you happen to do an array of snacks at the till, unfortunately that would not be enough to qualify you as a food shop and you couldn't use that to stay open. Other retailers that can stay open include corner shops and newsagents, off licenses, hardware shops, including those that hire out tools and heavy machinery, petrol stations, garages that are servicing or MOTing vehicles, and market stalls, but only those market stalls that are providing essential goods like food and hardware. Unfortunately, other stalls would have to close. Now, as I say, those businesses can continue to be open normally and people can come into their businesses. However, they do have to be responsible about how they trade. So that includes, firstly, social distancing. So they need to make sure that both their customers and their staff stay apart, so 2 meters or approximately 6 feet. And secondly, they need to have stuff in place to keep their staff safe. So, for example, soap and running water or hand sanitizer so they can clean their hands. We would recommend providing your staff with gloves as a minimum, and if you can get hold of face masks, that's a good idea as well. Now, other retailers selling different types of goods, unfortunately, they would have to close their premises to the public. But that doesn't mean they can't still continue trading. They just got to do it differently. So, for example, taking orders over the internet, by phone, by email, by text, or even by post. And once they've managed to take orders from their customers, there are a number of ways they can actually get their goods to them. The first of which is by post, and post offices and delivery firms are allowed to continue trading. The second is by delivering the goods themselves. That's perfectly fine. Again, you have to be responsible. Your staff should deliver the goods in a non-contact way. They should wear gloves. Ideally, you should be wiping down boxes and such before you hand them over, just to reduce the likelihood that you're spreading the virus. And when your staff get to the premise, they should leave the goods on the doorstep and either ring the bell and withdraw to the curb or phone the customer from the curb. Now, a note on that is that you should never just deliver the goods and drive off. You should wait and make sure the person has come out and collected their goods. And then the last way that people can get their goods is through collection at the shop. It's perfectly fine as long as customers do not enter your premises and you hand over the goods in as non-contact a way as possible. Now, what this means is that when goods are being delivered to the car, your customers withdraw to a safe distance, or alternatively, you drop the goods outside your premise and you allow them to collect them from there. What I would recommend is that you don't accept cash for these sort of transactions, because cash is commonly handled and it's a really good way of spreading the virus. So if I move on to places like restaurants and cafes, now, unfortunately, these sort of businesses do need to be closed to dine-in customers. But again, doesn't mean that they have to close altogether. They can switch to takeaway and delivery. The licensing laws have actually been changed to allow it much easier to add delivery and takeaway to your business license. So anyone who needs advice on that should contact their local council licensing department. What I would say is if your alcohol license doesn't include off sales, then unfortunately you can't provide alcohol through delivery or takeaway. Now again, however you decide to go, whether it's takeaway or delivery, you have to be socially responsible. If it's through delivery, you should follow all the advice I just gave you. If it's through takeaway, you need to be having social distancing in place in your place of business. There's a number of ways you can do this. So for example, have dedicated time slots where people can arrive to pick up their food. Have a one in, one out system so that you don't have a large number of people in your premises. Or if you allow multiple people in, mark your floors in the same way that supermarkets have done so people can queue 6 feet apart. Obviously, if you have a small premise, people would have to queue outside. So if you do want to do markings, they would have to be indelible so they could be removed. Moving on then to things like food stalls and trucks. Again, these businesses can continue to trade in the way they had been before. Again, they need to be responsible. Ultimately, you mustn't be encouraging people to congregate in one area because that increases the likelihood the virus is going to be spread. So you absolutely cannot provide seats or tables outside of your food stall that would encourage people to sit and eat. Likewise, you wouldn't be able to park up in areas where there's pre-existing seating like park benches.
So, what about businesses that come into your home, like plumbers or electricians?
Um, that's perfectly fine. Those businesses can continue to trade exactly as they had done before, but again, you need to have social distancing in place. Try and minimize the contact you have with your customer and wear gloves at all times. What I would say is if you're showing any symptoms of COVID-19, you cannot go into somebody's home. Likewise, you can't go into someone's home if they're self isolating or if they're in one of the at risk categories.
Thank you, Nathan. And how can businesses get in touch if they want more advice on this subject?
Well, what I would say is we do recognise this is a very difficult time for businesses, and if any of you out there need help due to COVID-19 crisis, our advice is free of charge. You can contact us by the link in this post. So just send us a message and we'll get back to you.
It's as easy as that. Thank you, Nathan.
No problem.